All right. Yeah, so hello everybody and welcome, and thank you for joining our second Cascadia information session. Just so people are aware, we're going to be recording this session for anyone who can't make it, and to be able to share notes with people afterwards. As we're talking, please feel free and let people know in the chat what watershed or city you call home and what brings you here today, and also especially if there's any questions that you have. This session will run for hopefully less than an hour, and yeah, please do feel free to add questions. We're packing in a lot of information just to try to kind of give an introduction and overview. And so we might not get to everything, but we would like to invite everyone to join us for a Cascadia campfire, which will just be directly as soon as we're wrapped up here, which is a little bit more of a space where we can introduce each other and learn about each other's work and connect together. And we'll take the screen down so that we can see each other's faces and learn more about each other's work and what brings us here today.
Will we need to do anything different, or will it automatically go to the campfire after this?
Yeah, it's the same.
I only signed up for this.
No, it's the same Zoom link. So it's just literally just hang out and you're good. And yeah, it's just an informal, it's just kind of what we're calling more of an informal drop-in. And it's especially for us to kind of connect together with other people who are interested in organizing for the tour. This is for, we have a lot of people in a lot of different areas. And so hopefully people will be able to connect together in specific watersheds. And then otherwise we'll get to meet other people who are organizing other areas as well. If you are interested in being involved, please do let us know one way or another, and make sure that we have a way of getting in touch with you. We've had a lot of people express interest, and then we realize like we don't have an email or something like that. So if you'd like to be involved, kind of the two main ways or things that we'll ask you to do is maybe just go to the website regeneratecascadia.org and sign up from the organizer form on the top bar, or you can join our Telegram group, which is t.me/regencascadia if you use Telegram. And if not, email always works. So please do feel free to reach out to us by email, or we'll try to reach out to you by email. So yeah, thank you everybody. And Claire,
the question, I see people posting stuff in the top, and I clicked on the green, what watershed and city do you call home, and nothing happens. So I don't know how to.
So that's just a presentation. So we're just like, so this is just a prompt for like, you can just answer the question in the chat.
Right. So people are posting and I see it up top. They're typing something. I'm from New York. I'm from here. And I don't know how to do that. So.
Oh,
can I offer to help, Claire and Brandon?
Absolutely.
Christine, I'm Phoebe. I think you're just looking at the presentation. Look at the far right, upper right of your screen. And if there's nothing in the way, move the cursor up and down and you should see a little view menu.
Chat.
And also at the bottom of your screen, there's the chat function. And that's how you open it up.
At the top is the chat function for me. So I'll click on chat.
Yeah,
and then I can say something.
Then you should be able to introduce yourself. Okay, sorry guys.
Thanks.
No, it's wonderful. Thank you. It's wonderful. So, and please definitely jump in with any suggestions or recommendations like that. So it's very appreciated, and thank you, Phoebe.
Yeah.
Sure. All right.
Yeah. So I knew on. Yeah. So before I introduce ourselves, I just wanted to point out Stephen and Midi, who are going to be helping us with the scaffolding team for Regenerate Cascadia. So I'm Claire Atwell. I'm a community artist and weaver based in Victoria, BC, in the heart of the Salish Sea, which are also the unceded lands of the Lekwungen and Wasanic-speaking Coast Salish people. And Brandon.
Yeah, and my name is Brandon Letzinger. I'm the executive director for the Department of Bioregion, and I'm here in Seattle and on the Salish Sea, on the unceded lands of the Duwamish people. So very excited to see you all here today and for you guys all to be joining us.
Oh,
Thank you guys. It's great to finally meet you.
Yeah, who is that? Thank you.
That's Phoebe. Sorry, I'm keeping my mic on mute most of the time because there's some household noise.
Yeah, and so just if you're unfamiliar, kind of like if Regenerate Cascadia is like a new thing or a new idea, or it's like and you're just kind of learning about the project or the program. So the way it's kind of working is that Joe Brewer and the Design School for Regenerating Earth have been doing really cool activation tours. And Claire and I are serving as the co-conveners who have invited him to this landscape. And the way he kind of operates is that he basically, where he's invited in, he comes and he does activation tours and does presentations and talks and other things. And just as we are inviting Joe in to join us here in Cascadia, we are working with local on-the-ground land leaders and stewards to invite us into their local communities. And so, so we're kind of serving as an invitee on the bioregional framework. You all, as local activators, are inviting us in as the local land stewards. And our mission is very similar, I think, to a lot of what we've been talking about, but it really is in service of this idea of a planetary network of bioregions and bioregional movements. And so starting to shift our thinking and frameworks away from arbitrary lines and boundaries and much more around holistic scales that that the planet use. So.
Yeah, so where did this all start? Regenerate Cascadia started as a collaboration between Brandon and me during the 2023 Edge Prize, an initiative by Salmon Nation and the Terrain Collective, designed to bring a community of edge walkers, weavers on the edge of different communities, but tied to the whole, to share open source Indigenous knowledge for a more resilient world. More than 140 edge walkers, one of whom was Midi, who's here, met for 8 weeks to explore place-based bioregional regeneration, tell their stories, and practice working cooperatively to distribute funding to regenerative projects. Much of the on-the-ground work needed for bioregional regeneration is being done in our communities, but too often the work is siloed and not connected. So during the Edge Prize, Brandon and I recognized that mapping and empowering the work already happening was what was missing. We saw a huge opportunity through catalysts such as the Activation Tour and the Regenerative Communities Network Summit to help weave a network that sparks a bioregional movement whose time has come.
Yeah, and so with that, really the design challenge after these 8 weeks of talking and meeting is what would it take to regenerate the Cascadia bioregion and to comfortably live within the limits of our bioregion and responsibly as part of this planet? So how do we weave these lessons coherently across many different watersheds and territories to connect the work being done on the ground? How do we imagine new forms of bioregional governance while honoring and celebrating our unique stories of place?
Yeah, so how can we empower all of our work and connect it with the resources we need for the long-term regeneration of the Cascadia bioregion? So Regenerate Cascadia is being developed as a long-term vision and process that works with on-the-ground communities to design and implement new frameworks of governance, ecology, and economy for the regeneration and health of our bioregion.
Yeah, and I think more broadly than the vision becomes to develop a participatory framework at a watershed, eco-regional, and bioregional scale that's able to democratically steward a vision, a blueprint, a roadmap, as well as an information commons that can be tracking carbon inputs, carbon outputs. Are we being successful every year at actually helping us tackle the issues of climate change with definable metrics of success? And then lastly, I think a big part of our vision for Regenerate Cascadia is the creation of a bioregional regeneration fund, which can support our work, as well as that participatory body that can transparently and accountably help connect funders from whether it's around the world, the region, but directly to landscape leaders and stewards and communities who are doing the work. And also in a way that's being facilitated and directed by those communities themselves. And so that's really the challenge that we want to see through Regenerate Cascadia. I think just to give a little bit of context, if you're not familiar with the idea of Cascadia, sorry, I've got a dog here. If you're not familiar with the idea of Cascadia, it is a bioregion, and so it's a way that we talk about the Pacific Northwest, but as defined through our watersheds. And so as defined through our watersheds, it stretches from Southeast Alaska all the way down to Northern California in the south, and as far east as Yellowstone. On the west, it extends out through the Cascadia subduction zone and is defined through the very geology of the plate tectonics, and then how those plate tectonics form the mountains, which form the volcanoes, which form the soils and ecosystems. And so really help determine our ways of living, where our agriculture is, and then the networks of both ecosystems, plants, animals, and then the people within them. So really helping build these watersheds, frameworks of the ecoregions between like the Salish Sea, the Willamette Valley, as well as larger bioregional connections here within our own bioregion, and then across North America and the planet. So looking at a picture of the Salish Sea, for example, we share one ecosystem, one watershed, regardless of whether it's divided by an arbitrary national border or not. And so we need to be building in the systems which can accurately reflect that, and that better work and represent the realities of place. So that's where we're kind of starting from.
Thanks, Brandon. Brandon's great being able to explain that. And I just wanted to say, I think that Potter, your dog, is starting to react to the fact that we've been working all day on Zoom, probably. So,
quick question: why is the pig a political genius?
Okay, so
a good question.
A good question. So if you're not aware, so what we have here is a picture of the Salish Sea. The Salish Sea basically encompasses, it's like 80% of the population of the entire Cascadia bioregion are present in this picture. And the line between Canada and the United States, and how it was drawn on between Vancouver Island and the Olympic Peninsula, was decided in the Pig War, and it was a dispute between an American farmer and a British farmer over a pig. And because of that dispute, that is how kind of what led to the defining of the line where it is. And so the San Juans on the US side of the border and the Gulf Islands are actually part of the same island chain, involving hundreds of different islands, and yet they're cut into two different areas. And then another place I think is to kind of note is Point Roberts, which is a really interesting exclave that juts from British Columbia into the United States. And it's literally an isolated community of 2,000 people that can't even, like, I don't know, get to surrounding areas. So it's just the political genius of the accidents of history of how we define our borders.
Yeah. And they're isolated because they can't travel into Canada, and they can't travel across the sea to the San Juans. I mean, they're just stuck.
So they have a ferry boat, but every time they want to go, they have to cross a border. And so even during COVID, they were incredibly isolated because the border actually shut down. So all their food and water had to be, I think, either flown in or brought in by ferry.
Okay.
on the next slide. Yeah. So the activation tour, and where do we start? We had already invited the Design School for Regenerating Earth to an activation tour in October. This using a series of locally organized events to catalyze a broad conversation so that the nested relationships between watersheds, ecosystems, and the larger bioregion becomes clear. In doing all of this, we saw an opportunity to begin building a movement map, but a bit more on that later. Recognizing the activation tour as a catalyst for this vision was inspired by the success of two similar events earlier this year. The first involving 14 cities around the Great Lakes. The second involving multiple communities throughout the whole Colorado River Basin. Inviting the Design School for Regenerating Earth to join us for a month-long bioregional activation tour throughout Salmon Nation is exciting because of the potential to effectively share this vision through coherent storytelling. It's exciting for the design school for Regenerating Earth too. Not only will this be their most ambitious schedule to date, it's the fact that this is Cascadia, probably one of the most active places on Earth when it comes to existing regenerative initiatives. And I don't know if you want to comment on the stops that you've mapped out on this amazing map of like aerial picture of Cascadia.
Yeah. So I think just to jog in, so this is all emerging from the landscape leaders, and that's really like the whole point of the tour is really to help kind of start to weave together the work that's already happening. And so we really want to connect, empower, start to map the regenerative processes that are happening, and then to start really like shared dialogues and themed conversations. So well, this is definitely a map and a schedule. And I think at this point, we're actually like, I think we have organizing teams in almost all of these places. But it is actually still a little bit of a rough draft. And so if there are other places that you really feel like we should be reaching out with, or there's like a team that emerges, some of these dates are still very flexible. And then if there is a stop near you, we definitely recommend and suggest that people kind of plug in with that local organizing group. And what we're really looking for is to have a primary point of contact in each place that we can work with and kind of point people to. And then it'll be the local teams that will decide the calendar and schedule for each of these areas.
Want to
So-
slide?
Just a question, and you can, some of these might be more appropriate for whatever we meet in as part of the scaffolding team, but I'm looking at that and hearing the dates are somewhat flexible. So are some of those vacant spots that are or places where you've picked something, Brandon, but there's no team there yet? Or
There's pretty much a team in each one of these areas, and we're working with these dates. The main thing is that we're working, like, I think it's really exciting that we have so many people from Eugene joining us here. I think Eugene's a perfect example of, I think they had like a Facebook group where they've been talking and planning and meeting, and I think they've been working with Joe. But our goal is to try to find that primary point of contact so that we can make sure that they're added to the map. And then as we start to really do more publicity and PR, as more organizers emerge, we have local coordinators that we're working with where we can just like point people there. And so, yeah, we really we're working on this kind of like scalable membrane structure where the local activation team really has that autonomy. And then we're kind of holding the vision at this larger Pacific Cascadia scale, I guess.
thanks.
All right, great.
So the design school for Regenerating Earth started in March. That's when it opened its doors. It's online, and it's helping to connect on the ground communities in bioregions to basically connect a network of bioregions at a planetary scale. The main conveners of that are Joe Brewer.
Doing anything, tune into this group.
What's that? Is somebody?
Period.
Alberta, would you mute yourself, please?
Yep. Joe Brewer, Penny Heipel, and Benji Ross, and we could say more about them later. They will be on the activation tour. Benji is getting really busy in the Colorado River Basin, so we'll only be there for probably a very short part of the activation tour. But so one of the main things about the design school is that they would want to be they needed to be invited into the bioregions by those communities. And so it started with Victoria and the Department of Bioregion, Brandon, inviting the design school into as an activation tour, and that got the process started along with the Regenerate Cascadia initiative. But Yeah, and I don't know if you want to say anything more on that.
No, I think that's great. And I think one of the big things that's really nice is that by working with the design school and then also through the Department of Bioregion, we're working with a few very simple principles. And first and foremost, that's just that the land organizes the people. And that the work that we're doing is done in a pro-social context. So that means that rather than trying to promote one group or organization above the other, or a tool that's going to be the answer, we really want to support everybody's work and empower it as if it's our own. And we want to come to that in an authentic way that truly is supporting it. So we want to start to shift from a competitive environment where we're competing for a limited pools of money, and much more towards a collaborative and cooperative environment that's able to support all of our work for the work that we need for the planet. And so I think that that's a really important organizing principle and a really wonderful organizing principle. In addition, we're also working within frameworks that are bioregional. So rather than in the context of a nation state, which might be cities, state, province, county, we really want to work on the scales of watersheds, holistic landscapes, and be really looking at at a systems level, what we need to be doing and how we can be connecting to support our own work. And I think a lot of this is also emerging, that the answers that we need for the world are happening in our communities right now. And so we want to connect and empower people so that they're able to walk out their front door, get active, get engaged, and be able to have the tools they need to make that work happen. Yeah, so yeah, so with that, I think so the design school coming, like, just to, I guess, in terms of actual details, we will be physically traveling into these different communities on those dates, and then the local activation teams can think about, what do you want to get out of it? It's all just kind of a cheap excuse for doing really awesome organizing, highlighting work. And then we do want to start to have conversations also about creating a shared vision. How can we be collaborating? How can we be working together? But there are so many different types of events that you might want to think about. Some of the most simple are things like presentations. It could be small discussions. It could be workshops, field trips to site-based learning centers that are doing really cool stuff, as well as strategic meetings. I mean, whether it's a podcast interview, it could be a sit down with local community organizations. It could be an interview with locally elected officials to try and get some type of initiative started or to raise awareness of it. It could be meeting with journalists about work happening in a space. So those are some of the simple things. Claire, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, some of the most successful of the events that were organized in Ontario, they talked about inviting youth, and it was Ask Joe Anything session, and it became very generative, so it was pretty open. And the other thing that has come up is bioregional walks, and Joe will be speaking a bit to the local landscape that you're on, so helping to make sense of the ecological flows that are significant to your watershed. And so actually going out onto the land so that some of those pieces are connected is also really effective. Yeah, I think that's...
Sorry, I clicked Phoebe's link. Let me get back over here.
Embarrassing.
That's good. There we go. I'll be looking at it later though, so it's great. Yeah, and then I think the really exciting thing about a lot of this too is that everything that we're doing is replicable and scalable. And so, as that was alluded to in that earlier image, where we're talking about the Design School for Regenerating Earth, there's a lot of other networks, Deep Transformation Network, Earth Regenerators, so many other, I know, like Ben Roberts is like, so many people are convening these conversations right now. And so I think one of the things that's really cool about that is that all of the work that we're doing is directly applicable for these other areas. So there are organizing teams in the Great Lakes that are watching what we're doing, and there are groups in the Colorado River Basin organizing and watching what we're doing. And all of these lessons that we're learning, the tools that we're building, the websites and the backends are all going to be like directly transferable and made available for these other groups. And more than just North America, there's people now, I mean, all over the place. And so there's people in Appalachia, Texas, there's people in Central America, India, Lebanon, that are looking at this going, oh, maybe we should have a bioregional activation tour. How can we kind of learn from these different lessons? How can we build it in? And so I think that idea of the subsidiarity and the scalability is one of the most exciting things about this project.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add in that there's a lot of scaffolding that just doesn't exist. And so adding that in is, as it's being developed, is has been really very powerful. So.
Yeah, and on that note, I'll just say that, you know, we're approaching this in a little bit of a different way. We really do see it as a broad-based mobilization for regenerative projects within the Cascadia bioregion. And so with that, we're actually approaching this with questions, not answers. So we hope that the answers will emerge through this process, rather than us coming in and saying what those might be. So I think just to touch a little bit about like, where does the money come from? Where does it go? This is all entirely grassroots. And so, well, there is a dream and a hope that someday this will have an amazing amount of funding and that will all be supported. We did just want to highlight the fact that this is an entirely grassroots program. Claire and I are doing this because we feel really passionate about this. Same thing with Joe, Penny, and Benji. They are able to, they've received they have their own sources of funding. And so because of that, they're actually able to come and travel, and they're because they find it important, and they're able to do it without having to ask for a cost. And so because of that, we just did want to highlight that this is a grassroots program. All of the fundraising that we're doing is going to be to try to cover the costs of the activation tour, as well as the summit, which we're going to touch on in a moment. And then hopefully, for a longer term program and the start of a real conversation around what some of these participatory frameworks look like. A big part and goal of the activation tour and summit is to identify who is at the table and who should be at the table for the start of these conversations. So rather than the end goal being the tour and the summit, we hope that it's the beginning, not the end.
So yeah, I mean, one thing just to add in that, it doesn't mean that there aren't real costs, living costs and other expenses. In fact, the actual costs of the tour will probably be somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000. Yeah, so and as we can see from the others who have been on part of activation tours, as we start to get clear about what we're doing, it actually makes it a lot easier to start putting funding applications together. So we've received one grant so far from the EDGE prize that Brandon and I were part of. That was we won that for the governance and gosh, the section of the prize.
Yeah, and I think we are like, and yeah, that's a great point, Claire. There are real costs, and so through that, we're hoping that we're going to be able to raise the money as we actually go. We do not want to charge for these events, but we'll open it up on a donation basis, and that we're hoping that through donations and the actual event itself, that through the hundreds of people that will be meeting and talking and who will be presenting and being a part of this process, I think we are confident that we will hopefully do it. But that's just a little bit of a heads up that we do want to be working with the local teams to help each local area fundraise, try to provide money if we can to so that people can support getting, if they need building deposits or food or, different things. We want to both help them fundraise and then also, So it's going to be an emergent process.
And I would like to also just say on this, as with everything, trying to reflect the transparency of everything that's there. We will be putting the budget on the website so that it's clear for everyone to see.
It's a great point. And I think actually a big part of that too we'll be trying to like track volunteer hours and volunteer time specifically to help us put together an accurate budget so that we can be you know, maybe applying for grants in the future as well.
Yeah, and so like just the accountability of all of that, and we're going to be as the backstop organization, Department of Bioregion, they're legally responsible for and financially liable for expenses and that we're unable to fundraise for. So
yeah, and then so the activation.
Can I say something?
yeah.
So I have access to free food banks and to the leftovers at the mission where I volunteer. Today I went in and there was tons of food. I'm a chef and a cook, and I just had this idea that where people are donating for attendance to these things, if I'm willing to cook some pretty simple things that are part of that, you know, make a donation for your dinner, and that can all go into fundraising, because I have access to a lot of that free food. So that's what I'm just excited about when I saw that on the local level.
It's wonderful. And I think especially on the local level, being able to do that in the different areas will be absolutely huge. So yeah, thank you for that idea, because I think it's great. And and then so there's two different parts of this. Is there's part one will be the activation tour, where we're traveling into communities around Pacific Cascadia. And those will be very small windows. You know, it might be 2 days, it might be 4 days, but no matter how much time it is, it's going to be really short. And so there's not going to be a lot of ways to connect beyond that. There's going to be a lot of people that will want to connect to and maybe don't have a chance to. And there's just so many. I mean, even I bet between the people on this call right now, there's so many amazing organizers. And so after the activation tour, we want that to lead into a kind of an activation capstone event, which is going to be an online bioregional summit that we're going to be hosting from November 3rd to 12th. And the reason what we would really like to see is this is going to be an open space gathering where we want to invite every participant who's been on the activation tour, and also other people who have lessons, knowledge, to be a part of the conversation. And so we'd love to invite everybody to be a part of the summit, to present a workshop or a presentation about the work that you're doing. And then we'd like to be compiling that into a broader proceedings. And as part of this, as we travel and during the summit, everything that we're doing is going to be recorded. We're hoping to have people join us along the way who are able to do live streaming or AV support. And so as we're going, the documentation is going to be a really important part of this process as well. So we want the focus on documenting and kind of like the harvest or the gleaning from these events to be centered as much as the events themselves. Claire, did you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you've covered that well. Yeah.
Great.
But maybe once you get onto the next slide, so actually from the previous bioregional regeneration summit, this was in part inspired by this, but one of the things was they developed a movement map there, but part of being able to even do this work so that it is basically sowing the seeds for what we know this larger vision is needing. We wanted how to design a digital ecosystem capable of weaving the emergence of diverse groups so that they maintain their agency, whilst at the same time ensuring transparency and accountability with group decision making. So how do we support an information commons so that the learning isn't lost when people and organizations change over time? How do we maintain this information so that it is part of a dynamic, ever-changing learning process? And how might we hold all of this without becoming bottlenecks to the process? So this is one of the big design challenges. And yeah, I think, I don't know if you're, I don't know if you want to skip back onto, maybe we'll just pick up on this in a minute. We're trying to incorporate this into some of the process that we're through the website, but we'll speak to that in a minute. Maybe we can, unless you've got something to add to that, go to the next slide.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I did forget to mention, one of the really big important things that inspired us about the Bioregional Summit is that Claire and I actually met in November of 2022 during the global summit held by the Regenerative Communities Network. And that was a global summit that they did on Zoom that brought together 1,000 people in about 140 different presentations over the course of 10 days. And they also incorporated kind of this Kumu and movement map. And so especially during the earlier phases of this, we did a lot of work with Ben Roberts to explore the different tools that they were using, and also really looking at what was functional and useful, and then where were they struggling? Where did it kind of fall off? And so everything that we're doing, we really want to remove ourselves as bottlenecks, really visualize connections, and really focus on tools that can be functional and useful for people. So. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so evaluations of the process, as well as improving how we learn together, is a big part of how the team at Regenerate Cascadia are developing the process. Developing processes for data collection and evaluations of the actual process so that learning becomes an integral part of how we proceed. But that's going to involve engaging the teams on the ground, but really wanting to be collecting the stories of place, lessons and learnings through written proceedings that we can, so that it informs our learning as we go forward. And really it's going to require developing those evaluations and how we collect the data, which we're actually already doing. I mean, even by people registering and adding themselves to the movement map that's on the website. That's part of it. And yeah, if any one of you has an inkling towards that aspect of learning as through evaluation data, I'd be really happy for you to reach out so that you can be part of designing that. But yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. Maybe the Cascadia spoke, what we're doing there. Do you want to say anything about that?
No, I think other than to say a big part, I think just reiterating what you already said, where it's just really collecting together almost like a festival of what works. When we were in the Edge Prize, another really thing that kind of occurred to us is that there are so many people doing similar work, and they might be a mile from each other, they might be 100 miles from each other, but they might not be familiar with each other or know of it. And so I think the documentation is really, really important, making that accessible to all of the participants, really important. And then the other big component of that, I think, is also that we really want to start themed dialogues around what comes next, whether that's digital tools, informational commons, community art, but start weaving together these amazing people who are already doing that work and connecting them with people who want to get involved, so that we can start co-creating and facilitating what some of these structures in the future might be, and what comes next, but letting that be a conversation that we start having together during the activation tour, together during the summit, and then we just again hope that that's the start.
Yeah, so did you want to do this one, Brandon, or okay? Yeah, so organizer responsibilities, and I know that's what most of you are really interested in, and hopefully we've given enough context. So this is the stuff we're focusing on right now, and that is to find a host team to start planning some meetings for the that will mix with the activation tour, and you'll be responsible. So the host teams will be responsible for organizing housing and food during the tour, the visit. And it'll be for 4 to 10 people, but we'll confirm. And there's a memorandum of understanding that we've put together. Brandon's actually worked, you could probably speak a bit more to that. Yeah, to organize really awesome events. This is your opportunity to do what's going to, like, the activation tour is there to support you being and doing whatever you can to really maximize what you can do. So they're really wanting to help you, rather than coming with an agenda that that is theirs. It's about listening to what you're wanting to do, and then also bringing the content of what they're going to be sharing. So also to assist with communications and media locally, and you're best suited to do that, and assist with fundraising as you're able. As said, sometimes there are costs involved with renting facilities, cleanup, the insurance is the Department of Bioregion. Actually, Brandon, maybe you want to take over some of that, because there are going to be some pieces that I may have left out on the local activation tour part.
No, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. It's just in the terms of and none of this should be a barrier. That's like, I really want to like focus on that. If you feel like you might struggle to like help house 4 to 10 people, just let us know. We're going to work together on this, and we can help too. We're modeling this on the Bread and Puppets. Recently did a tour last year that we helped host, and they brought a bus and then they traveled around to different communities, and that was pretty cool. And so we just kind of want to do the same thing. And so yeah, like, and we can help with cover costs, like if you're not able to fundraise and you really want to reserve a space, we can hopefully help with that. But then also, if you're able to, I think actually what was brought up earlier is a great point, like, you know, like going to local food banks, getting foods, preparing meals. That's such a wonderful idea, and that's exactly what we hope different local activation teams will be thinking about. What are the really cool spots that you want to highlight? Are there different really like cool places for field trips? And then we can help with communications on a broader scale, and then just think about how you want to be reaching out in the community to help get people to the presentations, or invite groups in that you want for workshops. And then yeah, I think that's really it. In terms of the summit, everybody's invited to host a presentation or share the work that you're doing. For the local teams, we do want to also create space about your experience in the process that you went together. So we've kind of like come through a community. We might spend 2 days there, but you now have this amazing team of organizers and groups and communities. So we do want to create space for those themed dialogues and discussions where we start to really talk about the visioning and weaving all of this work together. So how can we be better supporting that work? And then just a lot.
I got a quick question, sorry. On the location of events, it seems like in advance, it would be great to find inexpensive or free places that people could gather. And some of those places would be getting booked up sooner than later. So getting on that, and I have some resources for a couple, 2 or 3 places. Would we be in charge of, let's get on it, let's find it, and let's hold the space, let's make a reservation?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And actually, Christine, I think that's the sort of thing that we're going to hopefully start getting into in the campfire. It's
good.
Just
okay,
great. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Just, I have some ideas.
Yeah, no, that's great. Can I just add, into the bioregional summit, one of the things that has been really generative from the design school is as communities have had the activation tour go through, their whole learning process of how they organized, what started to happen, by their sharing those stories, everyone has actually learned. And we're able to, what we're doing now is actually building on everything that was learned through their stories. So just wanting to kind of really reiterate how important that is for thinking about how you share the story of all of the stuff, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we learn through everything. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, so literally, I think the only other thing is just about the website, and I'll actually jump over to the website in just a moment. But the big thing is just to register as an organizer. This will add you to our organizers map. Join the Telegram. But when you do that, you can also add your events and calendars. Add your events to the calendar. You can also add community events that you think are important, that you want to highlight as part of this activation tour, whether or not it's as part of the activation tour or not. You know, there's so much happening in October. It's really cool. There's permaculture events. There's like Tilth is having their big conference and so whether or not it's part of one of our stops, if you're involved with a really cool regenerative focused event or something that you want to add, you're more than invited to.
And actually just thinking, you know, this is about networking and coalition building, and by featuring stuff that's going on, you're basically helping them as well as helping to bring their audience into what we're doing.
Yeah. And then can you guys see, is this can you see the website now, or is it still on the presentation?
Oh,
No,
it's
we
got a
see
great
the
thing at the
Regenerate-
top. Yeah.
We see Regenerate Cascadia on your ultra-wide web browser page.
Yeah, I don't mess around with those narrow computer monitors. Yeah, so anyways, this is the the website. It's gonna get, so we've been working with Sandra, who's been volunteering their time with the Blue Dot Project, and so they're we're gonna have this whole new theme and all this other stuff that's gonna so it's gonna change appearance probably in the next week or two, but the functionality of it will stay the same. And the big thing here that just I want to highlight is that we're going to be doing these info sessions and campfires every Thursday. You are more than welcome to join us. If you've already done an info session, you know, that's fine. The campfires are for organizers to come and meet each other, talk about things at 7 o'clock every week. But also feel free to invite new people to the info sessions, which will be at 6 o'clock. You can find information about that in the Zoom link on the website. I'm trying to make it just as simple as possible for people to find information. You can see then that we have information about the activation tour, which also does have the schedule. We have the bioregional summit, and a lot of this is still in progress. The most important thing is that go to the up here on the top bar. There's an organizer's website, sign up /register here. This is how you can register for the website. And when you fill this out, it will add you to the movement map that we are building. And so this kind of helps us visualize people in different locations. And so you can see different organizers that might be in Seattle or, sorry, kind of zooming in or out. And what's really cool is that more than just a visualization, this is like a live relational database. So here I am, and I've got my little bio and an email and website and stuff. And you can see I'm connected to Seattle, and we're going to be adding more connections to this as well. So I'll be able to connect myself to the Department of Bioregion and other stuff. But this is really where we're starting to try to build an actual directory that can visualize all of our work. And so that's just kind of neat. You can also see there's going to be some organizer tools. So there's going to be an organizer dashboard where we have all of our Google Drive information. And so with the Zoom links and contact sheets, and then also the PowerPoint presentation, if you want to see it or add to it. And any other information. So as we develop a better media and communication kit, we'll have links to it here. You can update your information, and then on the calendar you can add organizations or add an event or so anyways, it's a website. But yeah, so And then with that, I think the only other thing I would really add is that the Telegram group is really going to be our primary place for organizing. If you don't use Telegram, that's okay. Let's just make sure that we reach out by email. And I think as long as we're connected via email or Telegram, that would be great. Telegram, though, is going to be a really nice platform where I think we're up to like, 30 or 35 people in the Telegram group. And so you'll be able to connect with other people in an area and maybe share updates and other stuff there. So that's just kind of a quick rundown of that, I think.
Yeah. And then I saw that on the website, so the website's changing quite a bit, but you had the Google Drive. There are a number of contact sheet, Google Sheets that we've tried to organize for you, for people that are in a particular watershed hub, to list the people that are part of the organizing. And then so there's a contact sheet on that, so you can get to that on the website. Yeah. Good.
Great. Yeah, so I think thank you. I think that's going to probably about wrap it up for our spewing information at you. And so at this point, I'm going to stop the screen share so we can see each other again. And yeah, maybe this is a good time to open it up for any questions.
And maybe just to say, yeah, if there wasn't questions coming up immediately, just what's going to happen with the campfire is there's going to be a chance to bring up more stuff that has come up. So
I have
yeah.
a question. Other than on Telegram, I've said I can host someone, this and that. Is that gathered by who's ever going to be the lead here, or do I need to reiterate and repost that somewhere else?
So on the top of the Telegram group is a pinned table of contents that will give you access to those contact sheets that I was, or the sheets that I was mentioning. And you can then, you'll see, you can just navigate to your area and then navigate and put in who the various people are that you're working with.
I'm sorry, so on the Telegram Eugene group, I said, here's what I can do. I can host someone, but where else do I need to put that forth so that it goes to who's ever going to be the lead in Eugene?
Just by marking it, so it depends what it is. It's just if so there's one sheet that's for organizing teams. There's another for tasks and duties and sort of offerings. And so if you put it in that under your particular watershed, under Eugene, then that's the best way for it to be communicated. You could mention it in the Telegram chat under the Eugene subsection.
And I've done that, but to go to the top and find
So
the different things.
What I would recommend is, Christine, maybe we could schedule a time to work one-on-one, and then we can get you set up with that.
Great.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Celeste?
Yeah, just a quick question. Hi, Brandon. We were talking on Telegram a little bit, and you've got Port Townsend listed as a location, but I can't, like when I go to sign up, it's not in any pull down menus, and I would love to connect with whoever else is interested in Port Townsend, and I'm just not able to do so.
Yeah, so we had a really nice meeting with and I'll try to think of their name. There was like 5 different people that we met with, and one also who was helping coordinate at Fort Worden. But then I haven't heard anything back, and it's been about 2 weeks now. So I'm a little bit so I might actually, maybe we could also connect more one-on-one.
Yeah.
And that would be really great, because it would be great to get that a little bit more locked down.
Yeah, and if you know the names at Fort Worden, I can connect with them because I'm on a board there and pretty plugged in there.
I'll get those names for you right now.
Okay.
So for the campfire part of this, we actually would love to hear a little bit, just like a short introduction, like a minute or less. Just where you are located. I know you've put some of it into the chat, where you're located, any questions that you are coming up for you that you'd really like to have us focus on. And then I'm going to try and, between Brandon and I, maybe we can try and capture that into the chat, putting it into sort of like an informal agenda, just so that we make sure we get to them. The other question we'd really like to know is, are you interested in helping organize in your area? If there isn't already an organizing team going. So I'll put that into the chat, but if anyone would like to start with introducing yourselves. And
So I'm confused. Have we started the campfire now?
yes.
All right, it would be, for my brain, it'd be useful to say we're done with the intro. I mean, we're kind of wrapping it up, but I didn't get the delineation.
Good.
Me too, because I
Especially
can't stay for the campfire, but I'll look forward to hearing from you, Brendan. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know I suspect Kirsten's here for the campfire because she showed up at the end of the intro.
Yeah.
So it just kind of helps
All right.
us all to transition.
Well, wonderful. So we are now finished with the Information Center, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our campfire. And I think the key is we just need to actually have like a physical campfire where we get to like burn some logs or something like that, huddle in the cold as one should.
You'll have to share like a YouTube video of a Yule log or something.
I was about to do that, but I thought it might be too distracting.
It's great. So yeah, well, so thank you everybody for joining us for our second Cascadia campfire. And at this place, we'd love to open it up a little bit more for introductions. It's a little bit more informal. We just get to meet each other, kind of like introduce some face-to-face rapport, and it'd be wonderful to go around and share a little bit. So I think I already introduced, but my name is Brandon and I'm in Seattle. And then how about we pass it to somebody? So how about Phoebe? Would you like to introduce yourself and what brings you here?
Not if I get a coughing fit at the wrong time, which has happened all day today, and I've been running meetings all day, including some big events. Thank you. I really appreciate you guys and all of you. I'm really interested to get to know everybody as we go along. I'm Phoebe. I live in Mount Vernon, Washington, which is in the Skagit River Valley. I am on the Skagit River, the Skagit Watershed Council, among a number of different hats. And I know that Larry Green and a few other people from my area have been hanging around with you guys, and Larry Green runs Navigating Our Future. I am convening the day after tomorrow a kind of intercultural Navigating the Future sort of meeting with Indigenous leaders, filmmakers, Western scientists and filmmakers on this topic. And so I'm hoping that Larry and his team might be in a better position to organize, just because he's retired and I've got 3.5 really full global full-time unpaid jobs already, but I'm really keen to help out with whatever I can. So thanks. I guess I'd suggest that I pass to Christine.
Okay, thank you. My name is Christine Lorenz. I'm a massage therapist for 43 years in Eugene. I've been a chef and a cook. I have known Joe. We used to work together at Oregon Research Institute, which is when I met him. And Elise was just a little sprout. And I've kind of been interested in following him. And his fellow researcher, Sean Bowles, gave me the book. And I haven't read it, but now I'm going to read it. And when I saw it was coming to Cascadia and to Eugene, I thought, well, I can at least do some fundraising, some volunteering. I can host someone. I can cook. And so those are my superpowers. And I just, at some point, I would like 1 minute of coaching on Telegram, because I was trying to figure out what you said and go there and find that spot, and I couldn't on my iPhone. So maybe in your copious free time, Brandon or someone else could just spend a minute with me so that I can then go and figure out how to put those things in that I can do that get to the whole important people that need to see it.
I'm going to cross the Rubicon and sign up for Telegram because of you guys. I've been resisting.
It doesn't mean you'll understand it, but I just signed up today and I will figure it out. But
Right.
Brandon
Well,
promised
big-
that there's something up in the right-hand corner. I just couldn't find it.
Oh my, yeah. Well, I think we've all been resisting this. I joined Telegram because of this too. So,
Christine, I'm going to let you pass it forward, but before, I just wanted to say to Brandon, I know that I've fielded a number of questions with people having trouble figuring out how to get onto Telegram. And maybe it would be really good to just take a moment, maybe at the end of the introductions, of you screen sharing and just showing people the process for that. So,
Yay.
Christine,
Well,
would you like to pass forward?
I'll pass it to Stephen Morris.
thank you, Christine. And Christine mentioned Telegram on the phone, and depends on which, the interfaces are different between desktop and phone, which make it even all the more interesting for us.
I could put it on my
I-
iPad instead of my phone, but just saying.
It's still the same app though, so it's going to look mostly the same. I'm Stephen Morris. I'm currently in Colorado, which I used to call my home. I now call myself I'm not a digital nomad. I'm a nomad. I do digital stuff, but that's not the way it works. I've been spending time in Barichara with Joe. I'm back for most of the rest of the year, in part because of Cascadia, in part for a bunch of other things going on in my life, including running out of tourist visa time in Colombia. So I have to work on getting a full-time, I'm going to go for a retirement visa so I can operate out of Colombia. I actually have been reflecting in the late 1970s, I participated in the building of an aquaponics aquaculture experiment at the Great Swamp Wildlife Preserve in New Jersey. And at the time, it was like the 70s and the energy crisis and things, and it was a quite amazing experience. And then that was probably the deepest I got involved in anything related to what one might call regeneration and the environmental side. And that was back in the 70s. So it's kind of amazing how far we haven't come since then, in some ways. I'm here to hang out in this campfire and joining this group because I plan on being some part of some media, as yet to be created media team. I've spent my employed life as an event technician doing audiovisual work, and I also do video editing and filmmaking and run Zoom meetings. So my contribution to regeneration at these stages is helping the flow of technology and information. And maybe someday I'll learn how to plant things and make them grow.
Can I have one thing? Sorry, can I have
Sure.
one thing? I'm already also good at fundraising. I've done fundraising off and on for the last 30 years. Just saying.
Awesome.
Good. Who are you going to pass on to, Stephen?
I got to pass it on to the black square named Mike Brunt. If Mike is there.
Yeah, I'm here. I mean, yeah, and I'm a black square. I'm actually quite a square in actual fact. Another break. There's a few of us on here tonight. Anyway, the point is, I'm a black square because I'm in a garden shed at the moment. So, I don't have great access to devices, but I will not be a black square next time. So I'm in Eugene, Oregon, and my main sort of focus in these last few years has been around growing food in urban environments, because I said this last time, I think I was on, most of the food that's eaten is in urban environments, towns, cities, villages. Most of the food that that we eat is not grown in urban environments. It's grown somewhere else, sometimes thousands of miles away. So, our big concentration is in here in Eugene has been to build up a seed collection, which is, I mean, we've got almost 1,100 different varieties of seeds, largely food or even flowers, edible flowers, and basically that's what we're continuing to do. You know, I mean, anybody that saves seeds will know the exponential aspect of that. It's mind-boggling, and we have to grow food closer to where we eat it. That's really my concentration, and so I'd like to pass this on to Midi. Or yeah, there we are.
Thank you, Mike. And listening to you, I have a sense that you and I probably grew up on the same side of the Atlantic. And here we are now on the west coast of America. I'm south of you. I am actually the southern outpost of Salmon Nation, representing the steelhead who are going to be coming back to the Malibu Creek watershed, thanks to the imminent removal of a dam, which has blocked their spawning grounds. So we're hoping for great things. And why am I here? I'm here because I fell in love with Oregon in the mid-70s when I was fortunate enough to be married to an engineer who was seconded to the US Corps of Engineers for 2.5 years. And we couldn't have had more amazing hosts, because for 2.5 years, we spent our time visiting, supposedly in a semi-official capacity, all of the most beautiful parts of Cascadia and beyond that I had ever seen in my life. I fell in love with the land. I fell in love with the people. I said, I'm going to be coming back. I came back in the 90s, briefly, when a group I'd been training with in Europe, Process Work Group, transferred from Switzerland to Portland, Oregon. So I came back again. And then in 2001, I immigrated to Southern California. And since then, I've been occasionally coming north when I can. It's a long drive, actually, from LA up into Cascadia. But I'm here. I've been involved with Earth Regenerators, with the design school, with a community funding platform called Vivero. I met Brandon and Claire through the Edge. Well, I knew Claire already before from Earth Regenerators, but I met Brandon as a result of being involved in the Edge Prize. And during the Edge Prize, I encountered so many amazing people and projects throughout Cascadia that I'm really excited that I may get to meet some of them in the flesh on the activation tour, if I can actually organize myself to be involved with that. Is there anything else I need to say at the moment? No, I think I just need to pass on to Alberta. I love the color of your jacket, so I'm going to pass to you.
Thank you very much. So I'm involved with a group called the New Era Convergence. And a year ago, August, we put a conference together. The values were similar to the Regenerate Cascadia local, but including, but it also included, we include social justice in our interests. So that was in a year ago, August. And then last year, between March and June, we took an interest in scenario planning that we called community-driven recovery and transition. We believe that the capitalism is unsustainable, and that it's actually going to be disasters that catalyze the shift to a world that actually is characterized by caretaking of the planet and social justice. It was very interesting. We used the permaculture sectors, and we divided out. We took the scenario of a 200-year flood in the Central Valley of California. Oh, I'm in Eugene, by the way. We said there's a 200-year flood that's predicted in the Central Valley of California, and there will be this is true actually, and there will be 1 million people who will be displaced. Lane County, which is the county in which Eugene resides, Lane County will acquire an additional 10,000 men, women, and children. And what kind of framework would you propose so that you are going to be a bulwark against disaster capitalism and recreate a society-friendly? The 4 sectors, we actually identified the sectors based on who we had that had some interest and knowledge in it. So there's sectors that we were missing, but we had food, housing, governance, the economy, and well-being. It's a traumatized population, so how are you going to support that? So these sectors, we had an anchor and a subject matter expert, and they went out into the community and interviewed other subject matter experts to develop a framework. So, for example, the housing subject matter expert had built an eco village, and so he knew everybody in sustainable building in Eugene. So that they put that framework together, and eventually, it wasn't just a scenario, a fiction. People really were making a plan for sustainable food. What food could we produce immediately? What industries would have to transform? We're the 5th largest grass seed producers. That's got to go. Okay, we have to start growing food on that land. Anyway, so and we also had have a commitment to de-siloing. So the sectors got to meet with each other, had to meet with each other ongoingly to make things that make requests of other sectors. So well-being said to housing, we're going to need places to convene. So that's not our job to build stuff. So you better make sure that we have, so they would make other requests that well-being made weren't gathered. They said, we think that there's not enough time for people to actually reach their highest and best. And food and housing said to well-being, I'm sorry, you just lost everything. We're going to be working 12, 14-hour days. And so they actually came to some kind of reconciliation where people wouldn't necessarily be working for 12, 14-hour days, but those who would be given services from the well-being massage and other services to make sure that their bodies were maintained. Anyway, you get the idea. It was very interesting. It was a 3-month project. On the strength of that, we actually have been approached by Transition US and by another group called Biodiversity for Climate, and they would like to put together some kind of a unification of Cascadia in much the same way in which Regenerate Cascadia is trying to do. So I'm trying to figure out how we might make sure that we aren't duplicating efforts.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. I just wanted to throw in too that the people in Port Townsend, we're connecting in with transition communities there, and then I think Larry Green and there's a lot of transition communities that we had on the islands, and I think in the Skagit area as well that we're connecting with too. So those are exactly the type of networks that we're hoping to plug in with and kind of empower.
Right. So this Biodiversity for Climate is actually kind of spearheading it. We're one of the organizations in Cascadia. They've actually done 4 of these in different places. And they wanted Cascadia to be next. And now I'm beginning to think that maybe we don't want to be, maybe there's some places where we might converge. Anyway, so so that's why I'm here.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. And I will pass to Brad.
Thanks, Berta. That was really amazing to hear. So I'm here just because I'm kind of become enamored with Claire and Brandon and what they're doing, and so I'm just kind of observing. I live in Western Colorado, and I'm the landscape leader for the design school in the Grand Junction bioregion. I don't know if that sounded good when I delivered it, because I just found out about that like a month or two ago. So I wanted just to name the emergent magic that I felt on the activation tour here, which was so the Colorado River Basin activation tour was just this spring, and it was not as well organized as what I'm seeing, and it still has connected me with a community that's just been incredible, and life-changing. So I'm gonna pass, and because I really want to hear from the other people in this group and more about what you're doing. And you're welcome, if you join the design school, to jump into my bioregion and see what I'm doing there. But I will be following along on this journey. And trying to click my thing and see who hasn't gone. It's so nice to see Mitty and Steven. Has Kirsten gone?
Yeah. And just before you do go, just to say thank you, Brad. It's great to hear your just reflections on the process that you've gone through.
And I thank you for that. And I wanted to add to it I don't know how to name, just again, the magic of the emergent process that I think is being held. And yeah, maybe just remind people that it might be messier than you expect, but that kind of where a lot of the magic happens too. So Kirsten?
Yeah, thanks for passing. And thanks for sharing, everybody, as well. Yeah, my name's Kirsten. I'm currently based in Portland. I actually found out about Regenerate Cascadia through my friend Quinn, who I'll pass to next. But yeah, he kind of got me introduced. So my friends Quinn and Sean kind of got me introduced to the world of permaculture and regenerative living with the land and with people. And so from there, I was doing work with the organization called City Repair Project here in Portland that's been around, doing the village building convergences. And so, yeah, I got to plug in there. And from there, yeah, network has just grown immensely, and just continuing to go down this path and think of ways specifically for involving other youth within this movement, because I think that for me, like, coming across this community kind of felt like a synchronicity or like a happenstance. So wanting to like bring this regenerative education to be a little bit more mainstream or accessible for people who maybe are just getting out of high school and don't necessarily see themselves, people who are like emerging into the world and don't necessarily see themselves immediately going to college or anything like that, but just offering an alternative pathway. And wanting to kind of bring that into fruition a bit more, and also just wanting to do More learning with, yeah, growing food, cultivating the earth, and working in community and pro-social behavior within community. I've kind of bounced around to experience in my learning journey so far, like lots of different kinds of communities, kind of all based within permaculture and regeneration, but getting to see it in different contexts has been really helpful for me in understanding, yeah, like how social aspects really are glue, and I really want to plug into that and bring that into the space as well. Yeah, just I'm also an artist, so wanting to do lots of community artwork and healing in that way too. I think people getting to tap into creative potential is really powerful for community connectiveness and thinking of solutions not just within making art, but within like bigger ripple effects of how we just interact with the world. So yeah, just tapping into art and creativity and community and lots of opportunity for learning. So yeah, just kind of on a learning journey right now and seeking learning opportunities and work opportunities and trading opportunities that feel in alignment with yeah, what's going on. So yeah, thanks for having me in this space. I feel lucky to be a part of this tour and be with so many amazing people who hold so much wisdom. So we're all collective like energy generators when we get together, and getting to just kind of have this all reverberate out and continue to, yeah, share this wisdom with more folks. I think that's really amazing. Oh, and I'll pass to Quinn.
Alrighty, I'm on the bus. Hopefully it's not too loud. But yeah, we're killing it out in Portland, and I'm also kind of involved in Columbia River Gorge and Eugene. So I'm happy to see some Eugene folks coming on, and I'll certainly be connecting with y'all. I'm gonna keep it brief right now, but yeah, on kind of a bioregional education pathway, nomadic situation. I guess I'm the first student intern of the Regenerate Cascadia project, and Kirsten's the second, unpaid, of course. And yeah, so I like the permaculture stuff, the agroforestry stuff, and regenerative education, bioregional education is my jam. So on to Roy.
I'll take the black box off. So my name is Roy Fox. I'm also in Portland. I'm not actually sure why I'm here. I'm trying to figure out if this is a group that's part of sort of like my next transition. So I've been working over the last 10, 20 years in terms of sort of where is the earth going? Where are we going as a society, not just in the United States, but across the world? And honestly, I'm probably one of those ones. I'm not a doomer. I'm always a very optimistic person, but I think we're going to be in some very, very difficult times. Some driven by the climate, some driven by social change that is going to make for huge challenges. So I've been trying to find an organization that pulls all those pieces together that we're going to have to be able to engage. I liked the whole notion of the design world, because I think we're going to have to ensure that somehow we can sustain the earth as we go through these dramatic changes, that we don't sort of lose ourselves, but that we also get real about what the world can support in the future, what's really going to be there. So I look at like what my next step should be, and you know, whether that is actually leaving Portland as an urban area, creating community in some other way. I actually don't know what that next set of steps should be for myself. So I was looking for a community that can actually be talking about that, and from which I can draw some sense of direction, frankly, for my next steps. I've taken steps like, you know, became vegan years and years and years ago as like the simplest step that I could take. to help the world, really reducing consumption. I live in an 1884 house that, you're going to keep this forever. It's the best way to conserve energy is, not to build new things. But what is that next set of steps that I can contribute to and benefit from? So I like to do both. I like to both be helpful and also know that it is something that is helping me and my community. One of the things that I will just say I've been a little disappointed with this intro is because if you don't have some basic knowledge of what regenerative efforts are, this discussion has been like just way past my head. And so I know that I need some help of really the 101 presentation, not the one about the tour that's coming up, which sounds great, but why would anybody want to be on that tour? What is it all about? Make it tangible. We haven't actually talked about any tangible things of what some of these displays might be, what some of the lectures might be, what some of the visits might be. And so I'm dedicated enough to kind of dig through that and figure it out myself. But I think about my friends, it's like, what's going to grab them and get them to say, I actually want to participate in that as well. And so I was hoping to follow up with Claire or with Brandon to see if there's other material available that would let us get at the very beginning and not weigh all the rest of you down who are pretty clearly engaged already. So with that, I'll stop.
No, I think that's a great point. And just to also kind of jump in for just a sec. So this early part, we're still kind of in a pretty early phase where we're kind of trying to like connect with these local teams to figure out. And something that we've realized is that we really are like the early part is really geared towards on the ground organizers who are already kind of like pretty leaned into the idea, kind of like preaching to the choir. But then as we get connected, the focus is going to shift to the general public, especially as we start to kind of set things up. And I think, actually just to jump in real quick, Quinn, I don't know, Quinn or Kirsten, you might want to jump in and just talk about some of the very specific things that you're thinking about for doing in Portland, because I think that's actually a great example of some of the things that we can kind of be thinking about.
I can share that real quick. So I've been kind of what's it called? The first kind of, I'm thinking of an ecology term, it's not coming to mind, but whatever. Kind of the person who's been bringing on the events for the Portland leg of the tour, and some of the things that we're planning. One of them is like a day at a community commons warehouse where we're going to be doing a presentation from Joe about kind of the big picture of all this, what's going on, the larger kaleidoscope of this stuff. And then Brandon will do like a bioregional mapping workshop kind of, that it'll come together more specifically about what it'll be about, but resource mapping and people mapping and learning center mapping and all these different things. And then like a workshop on disaster preparedness, and how we can start to think through food systems and water security and sanitation and all these things in the case of disaster. Some other things going on that day. Another day we wanted to do was going to be like an opening ceremony, harvest festival gathering situation that it's not going to happen, but I'll share the idea anyways. And there could be all types of skill shares, and it'd take place at an eco village or a place that's a community hub, and yeah, people just eating and reinforcing the intention of what they're doing. And then another day during our time in Portland is Indigenous Peoples Day, and we're thinking about sending folks towards like Indigenous-led projects or events, and maybe doing some other things that are coming together. And then we're doing like a schools and education day where we'll have Joe and other folks come to like a big climate fair for all the Portland Public Schools high schoolers at Portland State University, and call it a climate fair and introduce ideas about bioregional regeneration, and kind of start those type of conversations for younger people, and then go to some universities and do other things. So just to give y'all an idea of what we're up to, that's a summary.
Yeah, I'd love to also just respond to you, Roy, and then I'll round up what I was a little bit more about myself. Just one of the things, and thanks so much, Quinn. That was great. I think one of the things that I would jump to is there's a few things. I have put a link in the chat to the Legacy Project, and they're really good at sort of kind of really laying out some of the story. It also has links to some of the videos of the session recordings on that particular link. So that would be really good. The other one I would say is Joe's book is really excellent at laying out. It's very accessibly written, and really lays the story out in a very compelling way. So I would, yeah, there you go, Christine.
There it is.
Got it, yeah. So I just, yeah. And then maybe just one thing that I always say to people is like, the big thing that I think makes the like paradigm shifting difference in this approach is that using the land to organize the people is an absolute shift in how we've done, how we do things right now, which is basically running roughshod over the land. And so it's not so much about a laundry list of all the things you can do, as opposed to what is coherent within the landscape. And it's sort of using that very systemic thinking to then think about how we organize ourselves, because we're not thinking in that way. We're thinking about like, you know, completely from like our laundry list of everything we want to do compared to. And so absolutely everything about this is about coherence with natural systems and how we organize ourselves, and using the science as well as the relationship and connection, and that sacred connection too, because there is a sacred connection. You know, we have relationships that have an emotional connection, and it's not ignoring that either. We're not just heads, we're hearts and bodies as well. So yeah, I wanted to just say just a little bit more. Sorry.
No, when you're done, I have something to add to.
Okay. So yeah, just about myself, I would just wanted to really connect with Kirsten, because she and I are both community artists. I loved what you said about that. And I think my plug in just in introducing myself is I've always felt, it's why I turned to community art, is I felt that it was a way of actually being able to hold the processes and things that were particular to a place, that when people come together and are able to sort of get excited about and know what it is that makes them have a sense of belonging, that when that's reflected in the art, it starts to kind of hold a vision of what people, their sense of identity and what holds them there, and especially when it's connected into the natural system. So the more we understand story of place, which includes the geology and the natural cycles and what makes that particular place tick, it starts to have a coherence that we're often missing, because we get our culture and the arts from absolutely everywhere. And often when it's not local, we often sort of, when it is local, we sort of tend to be a bit dismissive that it's not that great. But actually, if it's helping you understand who you are and what's important, that's really like, that's something we just haven't put enough emphasis So I see Kirsten, we're talking the same language. I just wanted to put my piece in there because you prompted that. So yeah, just wondering if there are questions that have come up. And I know, yes, Christine.
So when Kirsten was talking, I just had this little brain fart that I wanted to share about Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg brought all this attention to climate change. She sailed her boat across the ocean when she was 16. She came back, she spoke out, she was from Germany, but she also criticized the United States for not doing enough. And I was just looking at her bio. And if this movement, bioregional movement, had a Greta Thunberg-ish person, or maybe there was someone like in Kirsten's age range who could make an inroad or a statement or an appeal. I mean, Joe wrote this incredible book, but having something that catalyzes this amongst youth or whoever that can bring it to the surface, like Greta did for environmental stuff, it just seems like that would be amazing. I was looking at her and she's now taken a year off and done this and done that, but just that it would be amazing to be able to tap something like that. That's what I have to say.
And
If you're
says on it,
Sorry.
don't worry, we're working on finding the other foods.
I want to share something that comes up with that. Is I appreciate the enthusiasm, Christine, and my own personal view is in the evolution of local first kind of thing. Is personally, I don't want anyone that people are going to follow like Greta, because she created as much divisiveness as she brought people together. There's a lot of, I could point to, I could search for, I've read them, but I don't keep that kind of stuff. A lot of criticisms of what she did or how it was done. And I think a lot of them are valid. What I want to see is people like Quinn and Kirsten locally inspiring each other. There's less divisiveness if people are operating, not following. You know, Joe is very careful to be low key overall, right? He's not interested in a following. And the most powerful leaders that I've seen are the ones where communities sprout up around them because they trust them, but they reach some, you know, that Dunbar number. So, you know, no more than a certain number of people. And can we take that enthusiasm that you're pointing to? Because that's the good side, right? Everything has the plus and minus and some balance. How can we take that positive energy, minimize the negative or destructive or divisive energy? Always be people resistant to change. But how could we do that? You know, combine the two in some fashion.
Well,
there's definitely a lot of Greta definitely inspired a lot of people too. But can we get the inspiration without the divisiveness? And I think the high profile creates a attraction for a lot of the people that we would be fighting against if we go too high profile.
I think just to jump in for a sec and not make it about any one person or not other thing, I think the big focus, right, is the paradigm shift, is that we have thousands, if not, you know, millions of people doing amazing things. And so connecting into our communities and helping people connect together to empower. And then also, I think creating that shared narrative and story around that, it can be a very powerful thing. But that's that little bit of that paradigm shift too, of not waiting for other people to do it for us, but realizing that we are the change that we're waiting for. And so how do we connect and make that accessible for people?
And sorry, I'll also just jump in for one thing, because there's some shifting in language as well. As often hear about, let's scale that thing up, and we often talk instead about working across scales, so that there's so that the concept of subsidiarity, which is the decision making that can be made at the lowest possible level, is where it should be made, and if it can't be made at that level coherently, that it moves to the next level, so that so that the knowledge that's on the ground, the people who actually know the stuff as it's sort of happening, like, you know, what's happening locally. Somebody above you is not going to, who's going to be more removed, is not going to know that in the same way that you're going to have those intimate relationships. And so that's where the decision making needs to be. So as soon as you get, the further you get away from that, the more disconnected you become from those relationships. So subsidiarity is a really, I don't know if people have heard of it, but it's a concept that's really important to us. Kirsten.
I don't have too many burning shares anymore, but I was just reflecting on, like, yeah, I haven't heard that term before, and if you could like maybe write that term in the chat so I could learn more about that, that would be really helpful, because yeah, there's kind of like a scale of, you know, change in movement and relatability and people wanting to be involved, that you know, there's a more sense of belonging and direct action when you're in a more local setting. So I think that, you know, the ripple effects tend to stay, well, I won't even say that. Like, when you have a connective web of lots of people doing localized things, the ripple effects are on a larger scale. But I think that's also kind of what you're saying of like moving across a certain scale rather than like moving from like local to like this you know, egoic figure that people like have kind of created their own narrative of. I just think that, yeah, there has to be maybe people playing roles on multiple levels of things, and that, I don't know, there's a place for everything, I suppose. And I think it's just about like where we want to focus most of our energy, and like where you feel called and like what feels authentic for you to plug into. But yeah, I do recognize that like the more someone becomes more of like a figure or a personality or an icon in society, like the more that becomes what the focus is and what that's like latched onto than the actual like message and movement itself. So I do recognize that as well. But yeah, still learning about like levels of at which we get things done, organize, and like who are those people, who are the leaders, and yeah, working at different scales. I like that ecocentric and not egocentric.
I'm wondering if there are organizer questions or questions around the website. I'm wondering if people have managed. Oh, Brandon, you were going to maybe share your screen for getting onto Telegram. Yeah, and this will be on the recording, so I know some of the people that had to leave early. We can.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah, I think what we should do is just put together an onboarding that could help with that. I'm at the park right now throwing the frisbee for the dog.
Okay. So yeah, I'm wondering if there are questions around the website, if people have had a chance to sign up for sign on to the map, register onto the map.
I put myself on the map today, I think. I haven't looked to see where I showed up, but I entered the data.
Great. Yeah,
I
and
did as well.
What's that?
Oh, I just said I did as well. It looks really cool to see it like in a visual format like that too. I really resonate with being able to see the like connective network in that way.
Yeah.
And the website to connect with the map is the regen.com.
Regenerate Cascadia. I'll put it into the link.
Thank you.
The chat.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering if there are other questions, or maybe we've kind of rounded out. One thing I'll say is that we're really wanting to get onto the media and communication side of things, and we'll be sending out kind of a template press kit for people to start using, so that and probably we'll run a session. We've already done that a while back, before things got as organized as they are right now. But sort of helping people know how to actually put a communication strategy together, and it doesn't need to be very complicated. And with a template, you can just kind of adjust it to what will work for you. But it's really good at being able to let people know what you're up to. But also, the more publicity there is locally, the more it helps everybody kind of tell the story. The more people will pay attention to it across Cascadia. So. Yeah, so it looks like we're do people want to are people happy right now? Would you like to do just a checkout?
That would work for me. Otherwise, I'm going to just drop out because it's getting late enough here for me,
Okay.
my day.
So what did you say, Stephen? What would you prefer?
I would prefer to wrap up now.
Okay.
If everyone else would. Otherwise, I'm just going to say goodbye and slip out.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we've reached the end. So thank you very much for coming. And yeah, Brandon and I are available for more specific things to discuss. So.
And I'll try and go to that site to figure out how to do it. The Telegram thing is still a question for me. So that's all.
Yeah, I think what Brandon suggested is we'll put a little video together actually walking people through, and it'll be on the site. I think it's causing enough people some issues, especially if they're not on Telegram. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, wonderful to meet everyone. Good to see friends as well that I've known. So thank you.
Thank you, Claire and Brandon, for hosting.
Yeah, pleasure. All right.
Yeah, thank you all. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Gonna make sure we save the chat.
Yeah, perfect. That's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you just said that. Okay, perfect. Great. Well, you're in the park right now, so and I have a family event. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. That looks good. Yeah, I've got a family event to go to right now, so I'm gonna get going to that. But how did you feel about that? I still feel like we could probably clean up the presentation piece, but how do you feel about it? Brandon?